welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 9. It's called A Matter of Time. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always, and this episode is about a fan who already watched this episode, who invaded the set and annoyed all the characters because he kept hinting that he knew it was coming, and it was really frustrating to all of them. That is the premise of this episode.
I mean, pretty much.
I mean, there's some meta stuff going on here. This is someone who is like geeking out over all these little things. Now, yes, there's a bit of a twist, which maybe suggests that a lot of the he knows things is actually mostly bullshit. But it's not. It doesn't really affect the way it's played and how he interacts with the others and how he's acting around them. It definitely felt like the way he was pointing out like Picard's character and things like that there was a lot of that going on. But the actor who plays this character, who says he's from the 26th century, from the future. Most people probably know him from around this time period as the neighbor from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. We did see him a bit more recently, obviously much older, on Timeless. He's one of those actors.
Oh, yeah.
He's been around. He's been in things constantly for decades at this point. So
I find it's his voice that's quite distinctive for me.
he does have a very distinctive voice. That is true. But he plays Rasmussen, who is this time traveler. He says he's a historian, and he's back to basically ask questions and see how things are. And Troy once again proves that her ability is completely useless by saying that he's hiding something, which he is, because he's not allowed to tell anyone anything about the future, but can't really offer or expand upon just a little feeling she has that something's not right.
Yeah, real helpful.
It's not like all of the concern she has is not necessarily any greater than the natural concern that Worf, as the head of security, or Picard as a good captain, or just naturally has, because this could be bullshit. They don't necessarily have a way of knowing.
And I say, of course he's hiding stuff by even taking everything at face value. Of course he's hiding stuff, right? And so it's useless to tell us that.
Yeah, so that was that. But I think it's kind of a fun episode, all in. There's obviously another plot going on, which is kind of like what he's there to witness is them helping this planet who's been hit by an asteroid, and it's affecting the climate and the planet, and they try and help, and then they kind of mess up, and then they have to try and pull some wacky maneuver where the Enterprise is like a lightning rod to clear the entire atmosphere of a planet of the discharge that it's currently got.
Yes, but if it goes wrong, it'll basically cook the entire atmosphere.
Yes, killing 20 million people.
Yep.
So, pretty high stakes in that sense. I think it was funny to me, and probably the best thing about this episode, especially once just revealed that this character is not who he says he is. He did come in a time machine from the 26th century, but basically there was a historian from the 26th century who went back to the 22nd century, where he's actually from, and he killed this guy, took his clothes, learned how to use his equipment, and came to the future to steal some tech because he's a failed inventor, and he figures he can steal some tech and say it's his own and become rich and famous as a result. That's the basic gist of it. And then he even tries to steal data, ultimately, at the end, which is where we kind of find all this out. But
it's a pretty, I don't want to say common idea, but something I've seen done definitely a few times, variations upon. Some obviously more recently than this, so I'm not accusing this of anything, but I'm sure there are some older ones as well that kind of in my head that I've been familiar with for a long time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I don't think I want to necessarily accuse it of like super originality, but I think for me, the best thing about this episode, in hindsight, and I like to see it on its own anyway, because it's an interesting scene, and it's Picard effectively making a speech, which is kind of an interesting Picard speech in many ways, because it's not because normally when Picard's making a speech, there's a very kind of clear moral right. And I think what's interesting with this Picard speech, where he's trying to convince this character to like just give him a hint, because if they make the wrong choice here, it'll kill 20 million people. And as he says himself, look, the Prime Directive is a very important thing, and I stick to it as best I can, but once in a while I have bent the rules a little bit because it's the right thing to do, and I make that judgment as a human being. I make that choice. And I love the part where he, when Rasmussen throws back at him about, well, that'd be manipulating the future. That's what it sounds like try to do. And I love Picard's point. It's like, every choice we make is manipulating the future. That's all we do every day. Like, to me, it's all the future. It's fair play to manipulate it because that's all we do. It's a solid argument. But what I love about this in hindsight is the idea that he doesn't actually know. And that's why he never gives in.
I love that. I don't know how much he does know, because he clearly knows some stuff, because we learn that the ship is pre-programmed to come to this time period.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't pick this. It's hopping about on tour. It's got a set time limit. That's why it disappears.
The only thing that I think we can, because he doesn't. I don't think there's anything he says at any point that actually implies he knows that much about the events going on. Now that I'm thinking back on all of them, I feel like most of the time when it's referring to the plot or what's going on the planet, he mostly just reiterates things or sort of reacts after people say things without actually ever offering up that he knows anything, right? The only things he seems to really have an idea about is the name of some of the characters. So is it possible there's like a dossier on the little ship about?
I was assuming there's a little computer being like, the event itself, maybe not the outcome, but the destination of this event that's witnessed. He definitely knows that there's something happening that day. He definitely knows, like a little bit about Picard, and some of the others.
Well, this is the thing. I think this episode almost benefits a rewatch, because I would love to go back and watch those early scenes when he's saying things to Picard and just how much of it could just be him bluffing and just winging it and make it like, oh, you're an important man, clearly, so I'll just speak about you as if you're remembered fondly for making good choices.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back and revisit that scene now and sort of like really pay attention to how he says things, because I think because it does feel so meta. Because the first thing I thought when he started nerding out over the Enterprise and then nerding out over Picard, I was like, oh, this is a fan. This is a meta fan is in the episode.
There's stuff though, like the name of Data's creator, who I'm completely blanking on now. Like, he knows that name that I don't think was presented to him beforehand by any of our characters. I don't remember them saying that. But he refers to Data as the Model T, and he wants schematics later on, of course. But
does he say the name first though, or does Data say?
That's what I'm trying to remember.
I don't think he did. I think Data said the name first.
I don't know. and ultimately, this is believable, and the reason we don't know is because this is how most scams work, and not even like malicious scams necessarily, but if you go to you want to go to a fortune teller, or just for fun, one of those like you pay a small bit, you're at a circus fair, whatever, someone's doing this sort of stuff. This is kind of how it works, right? They let you lead the conversation and pick up on things and kind of make educated assumptions. Because
even something you said there, when he makes the comparison of Data to the first car, like, is there a line, because Data's asking questions before that? There's a scene where he takes him to his like quarters that he's going to stay in for the night or two, and he's showing him around, and he tries to ask him some questions about, do you know if I'm still, I'm not even asking if I am still alive in the future. I'm just saying, do you know if I am or not? Like, do you have the answer to that? And he kind of dodges the question. I'm just wondering if there's a line in there from Data about, being the first android, or being the first, or one of the first androids.
I don't think there was.
Yeah, I don't remember it being either, but I'm wondering if there's some indication in a scene which would lead him to make that comparison to the car without him really knowing anything about Data beyond just, I don't know.
But this is why, it's plausible to me that both options are possible. The idea that one, yes, he is just bullshitting all of this and picking up on small things. He's very good, but believably good in that there are people who do this right now for a living. So that is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Or the computer was pre-programmed with just the basics of...
Yeah, basically a Wikipedia page of here's the main crew, here's what the names are.
It's not even a Wikipedia page. This is your your holiday destination. This is the hotel description. Like this is it's 100 meters from the beach. It's got like, oh, you can go and meet Data.
Yeah, this is the bridge crew. Data's important because he's like, the earliest android to serve in Starfleet, and just a blurb, just a little blurb for each person. Maybe he's all I had.
I mean. So I could buy that that's there, and he really runs with it and does, wonders from there. Well, actually, maybe he knows nothing, but basically, and
that's why I'm saying I think this one actually might benefit, because normally when you say something benefits from a rewatch, especially with Star Trek, it's for different reasons. It's for the way it maybe sets up the moral questions and enriches the impact of the episode. Here it's actually like, oh, I want to go back and see like just how much of this he was conning his whole way through, and how much of it was he just picking up in things they had said first. Because I think some of it definitely is. There's definitely parts of it that he just hears from them.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Which is why I like that Picard scene. I liked it a lot in the first place because I love Picard's arguments. And Picard saying, "Well, I'm just going to make the choice I was going to make then, because all this debate's taught me is that being able to choose and manipulate the future is the key thing we have. It's the one thing we have as a species. So I'm going to go do that, and I'm always going to try and take the risk." So, but in the hindsight though, the reason why he never is convinced by Picard is because he doesn't actually know the answers to what they do.
Yeah,
because even there's that moment where Geordi's like, I want to stay down on the surface to because the computer can do it on its own, but I can predict things, I can sort of like react and have a bit more leeway.
If something needs changing on the fly, I'll be better. And
Picard makes this choice to let him stay down there, and right after he leans in and goes, "Yep, LaForge stays on the planet," and I'm like, well, he doesn't have to know that. Picard's just made that choice. Like, nothing about that proves that he knew that.
I don't think. Okay, the way I read those moments was not him going, "Oh, I knew that all along." It was more a case of, these details weren't recorded, and this is him like making a mental note of, LaForge says in the planet, because he mentions a few times like, Data's participation in this mission isn't really heavily recorded.
No, he does, but the Geordi one didn't come off that way to me because it came right after the debate with Picard. So to me, this was him saying, I'll confirm that was the right choice because you've already made it, and now there's no going back. So it was like, I can't affect anything now by telling you that. Because at the time, I didn't know he was a con man. At the time, I was still thinking he was from the future.
Oh, yeah.
But in hindsight, I'm like, well, that's like me. It's like you in front of you got an apple and banana, and I say I know the future, and then you pick banana, and I look at it and go, yes, you were always going to pick the banana. Like,
how little you know me. Bananas are the singular fruit that I dislike. Every fruit I've ever tried, that is the only one I dislike.
Well, okay, it's not my fault you were a weirdo. It was just an example of two common fruit. Swap another one.
I'm just saying, you should know me better by now. How long have we been doing this?
I'm sorry, I don't know that you didn't like bananas.
Well, now you do. I expect you to remember that.
I'm going to send you lots of syringes filled with bananas, mushed up.
Oh, no.
And inject bananas right into you.
I don't like the smell of bananas. I can't have them in when if I go shopping, we pick up bananas. It's like, they're not going in my bag because they will make my bag smell of bananas for a week. And I was like, cannot have that.
Anyway, so that's the element of it is actually quite fun. It's a fun episode because it's fun seeing the characters get kind of annoyed at him. And I kind of liked at one point when he's talking to Riker and Worf in 10 Forward. And he keeps looking at his little doohickey on his ring. And what's so funny about it to me is that I felt like Riker was kind of almost... It was almost like the meta aspect of the episode flipped, and Riker was being the audience for a minute, because he started saying, wait, why do you keep looking at that? You're looking around. Are you expecting there's something about to happen? Is it something supposed to happen? And now that we know he's full of bullshit, right, and doesn't really know as much as he was leading on, the idea that Riker was reading too much into this scene and too much into his actions, thinking it was him like waiting for gaining to like fall off a ladder or something, like some silly thing that he knew was about to happen, but it never did. Like, it's just funny to me in hindsight, like, oh, that was actually kind of well written now, because I appreciated that Riker was buying into the story.
It's a very clever episode.
Yes, I think it's clever. I think it's a clever one.
I do, yeah. I wasn't sarcastic.
Yeah, I think it's clever in a different way, which I appreciate. And I think the actor is perfectly cast. I think he's got the right kind of excited, maybe mischievous, but at first it doesn't necessarily come off as like a malicious thing.
It's never threatening. Even
No.
there's obviously moments where it obviously wants us to consider the possibility that he's, not what he seems. I'm thinking, for instance, the moment after Data leaves him alone in the room for the first time, it just kind of does the slow zoom in on his face, just still for a moment. And it's just, if you could put some slightly different music to that, and it would be very sinister.
Do you know what I like about that moment, actually? Because I don't know if I'd say it was a slyness to it. Because to me, that moment where he's sitting on the bed looking around, he kind of looks around and smiles like he's just excited to be here. And it plays so naturally. It's because to me, this was almost like a rare example of like, we're going to actually have a moment without any of the other characters watching this person. And typically when you see them on their own, that's kind of the window into, okay, this gives you the hint of what they're really like. But because he just sort of he just sat in the bed, he just kind of looked around, smiled, I was like, he might actually just be a nerd who's excited to be here. Like, it didn't necessarily feel...
That's why I like that. It played it where just a subtle touch in any other direction, you could read whatever you wanted out of it almost.
So it comes off just like a nerd. And he still is a nerd at the end. That's the thing, is he still comes off. He's just he's got a bit more of an agenda at the end of the episode because he's trying to steal data. Which, I mean, some Uber fans may still try to do, admittedly, so it's maybe not a completely absurd metaphor, even up till the end. But, yeah. I mean, they catch him. I mean, I was enjoying Worf getting annoyed at the idea of having to do like a survey. Yeah, whatever it was.
And then you're like, oh, it'll only take you a few hours. And he's like, hours?
And then, of course, he... and again... the hindsight, that scene again, it's that same scene where Riker was like starting to question if something was about to happen. Rasmussen's asking all these questions about what do you think the most important, development since the 22nd century is. Now that we know he's an inventor from the 22nd century, the idea of what he should focus on, what should I put my efforts into, because it's the most important thing that all these characters in the future are saying is the best advancement they've had in the last couple of centuries.
Yeah,
is actually really funny.
Genius.
My favorite, not my favorite scene. My favorite scene was the Picard scene, but my low key favorite scene, bizarrely, is him hitting on Dr. Crusher. There's something about this really played to me, because
she falls into it hard.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing where she actually is kind of attracted to him, seemingly, at least enough to like flirt a little bit, right? She's at least willing to sort of smell at him, and she's not like threatened by him or anything.
No reason why not. He's perfectly pleasant for most of the part.
Yeah. Although this is actually the first sign that he's not exactly who he says he is, because she points out, because I mean it comes off playful in the scene when she says you're not supposed to influence the past, and I'm feeling a little influenced right now. Like, I was like, yeah, it feels like he's kind of throwing his old rule book out the window because he wants a bit of that Crusher. But I did like the touch afterwards where she's like, and I could be your great 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 grandmother.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. And of course, what he's thinking in his head at that point is, or I could be your great 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 grandfather.
Yep. That'd be awkward, wouldn't
it? But it's a fun episode. I don't know, I had a good time with this. So it wasn't like a super serious episode. Picard, it wasn't like a super serious. I don't think it's going to be the most memorable Picard speech, but it was a kind of an interesting spin on it compared to most Picard speeches that I think I appreciate.
It was one, the element of him admitting that sometimes you got to break even the Prime Directive, right? Because it's something that he's done, like when you say on a semi-regular basis, but he's never kind of just been really upfront about it in that way.
It's kind of like acknowledging what Data is striving for. The difference between human beings and computers is that humans can make a choice that isn't necessarily the hard rule that we've designed for ourselves, because we know sometimes there's going to be exceptions. And it's just interesting to sort of bring that element into it when we have a character who is an android who's longing to be more human. I think that's an interesting thematic touch to bring up in the story. That choice is very much the meaning of life in many ways. It's the thing we have.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So it is.
Still my bad choices though. So they should do better.
They do. That is very much something this show has also explored as human beings and other races that have made bad choices. But I appreciate that. I appreciate that it kind of touches on some of those serious themes without it being a super serious episode, and it just mostly has fun with this character interacting with the various crew. Troy never trusted him. That is fair, but again, she couldn't really offer anything useful to actually help with sussing him out. So, and of course, he doesn't get to go with the ship. The ship goes without him because it's on a timer, and they arrest him and they are going to drop him off at a starbase.
Really like this quite dark ending where they're like, "We've got historians who'd be very interested in you." It's kind of dark. Like, we'll try and find a way to send you back to your own time. It's like, no, you're staying here and we're going to study you now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's like, well, you tried to manipulate it because this guy, he's basically Biff, right? He's Biff from Back to the Future.
Sure.
Oh, you've not seen the second one, so you don't get.
I know enough.
Okay, but he's basically Biff from Back to the Future too. He's trying to improve his own life by coming back with secrets of the future, and yeah, obviously he has to be arrested for that. Obviously, this is a crime. I mean, if nothing else, he was just stealing things, which admittedly isn't. On the grand scale of things, someone stealing a few pieces of equipment isn't as big as altering the timeline, but...
And of course they couldn't let him go away in the ship and just continue doing all this.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they rescued Data, they couldn't let him just go like that. But the idea that they don't contemplate, well, we'll take everything you've learned away from you, in terms of actual records, you obviously can't take away his memories, but take away any recorded information, and we'll find a way to send you back to your own time where you can't do that much harm.
Yeah, maybe he knows too much.
Maybe.
Well, because I mean, he can't do any harm here now. I don't suspect they're going to lock him up forever and throw away the key. I suspect he will be given a fair, Federation-style trial and a fair Federation sentence, and then maybe he can now adapt to living in his new time period. But he can't do any damage having teleported to the future. It's the problem with him going back that's the issue.
That's fair.
So I guess it's the more. It's the thing that doesn't mess up the timeline, but it's more humane. Which actually reminds me of two other conversations I want to bring up, both with Picard and Rasmussen. The first one is that when they're first talking towards the start of the episode, and he's like, "I can't tell you too much because you might make different choices." He immediately compares it to telling Caesar like something about himself before he makes the choices, and I'm like, okay, I know you're not you just compare him to Caesar. You're just making you're kind of hinting that Picard's going to be a way bigger deal than he obviously currently thinks he is. Like, you're already dropping massive hints just by comparing him to Caesar, right?
Yeah. He goes, imagine telling a young Caesar what his life would be like.
And Picard's like, oh, I'm that important.
Caesar, you say?
So that stuck out to me. It's kind of funny. The other one is that when he's trying to argue, not like you can't tell him anything, because if the lives aren't supposed to be saved on the planet, and they do save the lives, then what if one of those people is going to grow up to be the next Hitler? And Picard throws out Hitler or can. That was I was like, okay, that was a interesting, time to name drop.
It was the smart thing to do, though, right? Like in terms of in universe, in terms of it makes sense.
Yeah, it's just interesting.
Like this show loves to reference events of the hypothetical future all the time. I think it probably does it this very episode, actually. But the idea of that one where, okay, this is one we've already seen before, and we've established as a concept before, to reference back to that again, I think it's really smart.
No, I'm not critiquing the choice. It just made me laugh because it was just so blatant. It was like right next to Hitler. Like, just... I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I thought about the real history of Hitler, then immediately I'm like,
I don't think they were that far away from naming Hitler, or maybe they even did in the original Khan episode when they were talking about.
They may have done. It's been a while since we watched that one, though. I can't.
It was, but it was definitely. If they didn't use the name, it was definitely talked about in that way.
I'd have to go. It's been a while now, so I'd have to go back and rediscover what the history was like before that episode, like what his backstory was.
Because if I remember the episode, he was found in like cryo sleep.
Yes, I remember that. But what I'm saying is,
yeah. No, but what I'm saying is, the history was he was part of the eugenics wars, and he, was wiping out a lot of people from, eugenics alone is a pretty big hint.
yeah. I'm saying that I don't remember the scale of it, like how many people he killed. So to me, when I heard these two names compare, I'm like, did he really do things as bad as Hitler? I don't know if I remember quite that scale, but that's what I'm saying. Maybe he did. Maybe that's what the implication was back then. I just didn't remember it because I'm thinking of just like that episode in Wrath of Khan. I'm like, well, he didn't rack up enough in those two stories alone to be compared to Hitler.
His history, because he had a reputation even at the start of that episode, right?
Yeah,
they knew who this was because of what he'd done. So I think he already was getting to that level.
But it's a fun episode. I thought the ship design of this little time ship was kind of interesting because when it first cut to it, at first glance I thought it looked like a staircase to me, and it wasn't. But it had like a sort of step design on the side.
Okay, I get what you're on about now. Yeah.
Yeah, but when it first cut, I was like, is that a staircase floating in space? That's a really weird.
Wouldn't be the weirdest thing this show's done.
I know the original series especially tended to find a lot of weird things floating in space. I mean, that was definitely a trend, but
yes, yeah.
So hey, there you go. That's a matter of time.
Yeah.
So no, it's a solid fun episode. I had some fun with this. So next time, which we didn't do this last episode. I forgot to do this.
Yeah, I realized when I started watching this, I was like, I don't know what's coming. I don't remember you telling me.
There was such a gap. Do you know what I think it is? There was such a gap between that and the previous recording that it kind of been lost in that. But also, I'm fairly certain we didn't do it at the end of Unification 1 because there was no point, because it's a two-parter, right? We didn't want to look ahead because it's the second half of the story. So I think you combine that with the fact that there was also a big gap between them, and we just kind of forgot the format. So.
Yeah.
Nevertheless,
is that the first time we've forgotten? Though?
May have been, yeah. It may have been.
That's not bad.
I mean, I presume we didn't do it as well, but when we got to the end of a season, and it was like a two-parter where the premiere was the second half. I'm sure we didn't do it then. Because what's the point? It's just best of both worlds part 2. Like we don't need to. But anyway, the next episode is called New Ground, and here's the description on IMDb. Geordi can barely curtail his enthusiasm at being able to test out a new theory of transportation, as Worf's mother boards the Enterprise with his son, and news that Worf's earthly parents can no longer care for him. Oh, so we got
That'd be interesting.
Worf with his kid troubles. So yeah, we'll see how that pans out. That's the next episode. Of course, if you want to support everything we do, hit the like button, subscribe, comment, ding the bell for notifications. I know you get sick of YouTubers telling you all that, but it is the things that do help. So please do all those things. It helps grow the channel. You can also support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and help keep all the content coming. Catch us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates and whatnot. And obviously you can ask us questions on there or in the comments, of course. But otherwise, that's pretty much us. That is the show. And this has been 2 episodes in a row, may I add. So keep us going.
We're getting good at this.
Back to 1 a week. We did that for like years, and it just got really hard in the last like 6 months.
Yeah, but basically, when I got a brand new job that did not adapt to our current schedules.
Yes. But here we are. So yeah, let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments. Thank you once again for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And somewhere out there, Wesley Crusher's grandson is hitting on Wesley Crusher's mother.